UFC 300 looks like complete dog shit. I'm going to just say it right off the gate. I don't care what nobody says. This fight card is not great, especially when you look at the fact that this is the 300th pay-per-view for the UFC. This is a monumental pay-per-view. This is 300 total pay-per-views for the UFC. When we get to these, like UFC 200, 300, 400, 500, these have to be big-time fight cards. And UFC 300 looks good, but not great. This is supposed to look actually spectacular. Every single fight, we have to know who the fighters are. I don't care what nobody says. Listen, everybody is chomping at the bit to be on this fight card. I bet you right now. You don't think that Conor McGregor wanted to be on this fight card? Listen, you even got Nate Diaz talking on social media saying, listen, I want to be on UFC 300. And he's not even in the UFC. He wanted to get out of his UFC contract. But now he wants to come back and fight at UFC 300. That's how special UFC 300 is to every single fighter on the roster. Maybe some people don't care, right? But a lot of people do. And then we get this announcement for Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. Listen, this is not a bad fight, but it's not UFC 300. This is UFC 301. Put it on UFC 301, and I'm fine with that. But this is not UFC 300. UFC 300 has to have banger after banger after banger fight. From the early prelims all the way to the main events. I don't care what nobody says. We got to get top tier fights. And yes, yesterday we got a great fight announcement for Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. That's a great fight announcement. That's a great fight. And listen, this is a title fight. That's fantastic. It is monumental. I think it's two, I believe they're both Chinese if I'm not mistaken. And it's the first time that it's ever happened in the UFC. That's fantastic, but still, it is, nobody really knows. The casual audience don't know who Yan Xiaonan is. You know what I mean? And listen, who says that she's not the rightful contender? Listen, give her the title opportunity, but put it on a different fight card. Put it on UFC 299 or 301 or 302. Don't put it on UFC 300. UFC 300, we gotta, bro, these gotta be big time title fights with people who everybody knows, including the casual audience, know who they are. You know what I mean? That's why you got guys like Charles Oliveira on this fight card, fighting Arman Tsarukyan in a title eliminator bout. People know who these people are. Yan Xiaonan is not a big-time name. You know what I mean? She's not. And listen, I understand the significance of it, but she's not a big name. You know, Zhang Weili is. I would have rather had Zhang Weili versus Alexa Grasso because people know who Alexa Grasso is due to her obviously being the champion and her getting an upset victory and making herself a household name by beating Valentina Shevchenko a year ago, right? But having, Zhang Weili and Yan Xiaonan being on this fight card is just not great because obviously that's going to be on the main card and that doesn't even warrant to be on the main card. I'm assuming it has to be. It's a title fight. You're not going to put a title fight in the prelims, right? If this is on the prelims, then I'll take back everything that I said, but I'm like, with 99.999% confidence, this is going to be on the main card, and this is not a main card fight. I'm sorry to tell you right now. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care. UFC 300 needs to feel special. I don't care. Bro, listen. I don't want it to be just a great card. I need it to be a spectacular card with big-time fights for every single, from the prelims, like I said, from the prelims to the main event, it needs to feel special. It needs to be special. And these title fights need to be big-time title fights. And sorry, I like Leon Edwards, but Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad at UFC 300 doesn't feel special to me at all in the slightest. It doesn't. If they possibly, listen, there has to be 3 title fights at this point. There has to be. There's no way there's only 2 title fights and this is the co-main event. There needs to be 3 title fights. There needs to be, and this is the 3rd fight. There needs to be the co-main event being whatever fight and then the main event be a big-time main event. Title fight main event. Because there's no way that you can have this be the co-main event of UFC 300. There's just no way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't care what nobody says. I need UFC 300 to be a spectacle. because we don't get these often. I mean, 8 years ago, we got UFC 200. We had to wait 8 years to this very moment. And you're telling me that UFC 300 is going to be worse than UFC 299? That can't happen whatsoever. I don't care what nobody says. UFC 300 has to be special. Special. Because we're going to have to wait then another 8 years for UFC 400. And that's not acceptable. That is not acceptable in the slightest. I don't care what nobody says. UFC 300 needs to be fantastic from the early prelims to the main event. Every fight needs to have some type of, amazing feeling to it. You know what I mean? Where we know who these people are, and these are legends of the game. And listen, throughout the whole thing, we have to get great fights. And listen, this is probably not a bad fight, but this is going to be on the main card, and this is not a main card fight. It's not. I don't care what nobody says. It's not a main card fight. This is, we're talking about you could have done anything else for a women's title fight. What, like I said, Alexa Grasso, Zhang Weili is big time, way much more big time than this fight. I don't care what nobody says. I'm sorry, I gotta say it. This doesn't feel special. This was an underwhelming announcement. A super underwhelming. I just hope that whatever they announce for the rest of this card, whatever Dana White announces for the rest of this card, I hope they're just banger after banger. And I don't mind. Listen, like I said, the Davis and Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt fight is great. That's a great fight. And that's going to, because I know that's going to be on the prelims. But the main card needs to be like one of the greatest all-time main cards of all. Like, it has to be one of the greatest, like the greatest main card of all time. Because it is UFC 300, like I said. And I gave him a little bit, I said that it was mid. Weeks ago, the announcements, when they announced Aljo and Calvin Kattar and Yuri Prochazka and Rakic, I said that it was mid. And weeks later, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're going to turn up. And then they gave us Charles versus Arman. And I'm like, okay, that's great. UFC 300, fantastic. But then they give us this. And it's like, my God, we needed something better than this. We need something better than this. And I hope that they can salvage this fight card and give us bangers. I really do. Because right now, UFC 299 looks far superior than UFC 300. And UFC 299 is like, what, so it's supposed to be whatever. You know what I mean? It's the pay-per-view before UFC 300, which is supposed to be the spectacle. You know what I mean? So, hopefully, they can fix this and salvage this. Because right now, it doesn't look great. It doesn't, it looks good. It looks good. But it doesn't look great to me. I'm sorry. This fight card doesn't look great. Listen, it's supposed to look spectacular anyway. It's not even supposed to look great. It's supposed to look spectacular. So, hopefully, the UFC can salvage this fight card and give us a banger main event, a banger co-main event, some great fights underneath it. Give us like some crazy matchups like Robert Whittaker versus Kamaru Usman or something of that nature. Please, just give us something special for the main card. But that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say about that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Peace out.